Hi, I'm Ian Morris, the Willard Professor of Classics, History and Archaeology at Stanford University, and author of Why the West Rules for Now. So, why does the West rule and what will happen next? This is what I've written a book about because I think it's a question that everybody wonders about at some point or another. Why did things happen the way that they did happen rather than some completely different way? Why did British ships shoot their way into China in the 1840s rather than Chinese ships sailing to England and shooting their way up the River Thames? And there's a lot of theories out there about this question, and I take on most of them in the course of this book. There are some people who say it's all to do with race, and some say it's all to do with culture or politics or religion. I suggest that the answer is actually much simpler. It's all to do with geography. And what I mean by that is that people are much the same all over the world. Wherever you find them, large groups of people resemble each other very much. History is unfolded along very similar lines all over the world. And the reason it's taken rather different paths from time to time has been basically because of the geography of different parts of the world. Now, you might think, if things are that simple, why hasn't somebody said this before? Well, I think the reason it gets a bit more complicated is that the driving force is the reactions between the geography of the world and the nature of the organizations that we live in. That what might be a hugely important geographical advantage at one period of history matters a lot less at other periods of history. So that, say, 5,000 years ago, people living in northwest Europe, sticking out into the cold waters of the Atlantic Ocean, they found this was a huge disadvantage. They lived a long way from the great centers of action in what's now the Middle East, where people were domesticating crops and building cities and creating states. But 500 years ago, by the time people had invented ships that could cross the oceans and cannons and guns, sticking out into the Atlantic Ocean turned into an enormous advantage. It allowed people in northwest Europe to colonize the Americas, to set their societies off down a wholly new course. Whereas people say in China, for them to sail to the New World, they had to go twice as far. It's twice as difficult for them to set their societies off down this course. So in this book, I try to trace the history since the end of the Ice Age of how geography, great men and women, bungling idiots, cultural trends, how all of these things have interacted with each other to produce the results that we see. And I claim that by doing that, by looking at the long-term history of the world over the last 15,000 years, we can see why societies have gone off down the paths that they have gone and where they're likely to go in the next 100 years.